So I'm gonna have like one of these cameras will be on us. One of them. All right. So like this camera is gonna be on all three of us, right? And then these two are gonna be. I mean, like, that camera setup is gonna be somewhat the same, except I'm gonna flip the camera angle. I want this to be the backdrop instead of that to be the backdrop. Yeah. And then I'm going to screen record my actual iPad so that as the draft picks are happening, like it's actually recording it so that I have that clip. So that when we want to show the board, we can just go to the board, right? And so as the video is playing, I can just show the board when we need to, like remind the audience or tell the audience what picks have happened, like as they're happening and shit like that. Like they can see the board.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
Trust me, like I've thought like a long time about it. And like, trust me, like it's gonna be different than anybody has done before. Nah, I'm good. What are these artificial M&Ms? And by the way, all M&Ms are not built the same. Like the peanut M&Ms.
I'm not talking about the peanut. I'm talking about just the regular M&Ms.
Nah, bro. You don't have. There's like no chocolate. You're basically just eating like hard candy shell. And then
tasting chocolate.
Almond M&Ms. Top tier.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment, can't depend on the oinker. Find your.
Welcome to First and 15th, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is our dynasty guru, Dio the Machine. Guys, I want to start off by talking about the biggest news this week. Sony Michel being traded to the Rams. Relevant or irrelevant?
Oh, absolutely relevant on both sides, really. This is a trade, I'm not going to lie, it kind of hurts me a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm not overweight on Darrell Henderson, et cetera. But he was someone that I've been trying to target in drafts, especially in the 5th round, at points the late 4th round.
We did talk about him, didn't we? I almost forgot about that conversation.
Yes.
Darrell Henderson?
Yes,
mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
So what this does to that backfield...
collateral damage.
Exactly. I'd be lying to say if, I knew exactly what was going on. I think it's obviously going to take Sony some time to get acclimated to the new system. There'll be some question marks in terms of whether or not he's a good fit in their system. But obviously they traded for him. They saw something in him. They saw him run all over them in the Super Bowl, and one reason why they lost that Super Bowl. So, it'll be interesting. The recent injury scare with Henderson, may have been like a tipping point, I think, for the coaching staffs to finally go ahead and break the seal and look to acquire Sony. And we saw that New England has pretty much, like we talked about, been showcasing them throughout the preseason. So question is this a RBBC? Is there going to be a 1A or 1B? It's honestly going to be tough. So I think it's one of those situations, unless you're getting these guys at some pretty low value, I'm likely just staying away at this point. So for all those who were taking victory laps about the late round Henderson shares, now you're kind of getting hit with the hard dose of reality. And this won't be the first situation. This one involved a trade, but there'll be other situations that involve injuries. We've already seen that with Travis Etienne. And there'll be other situations that just involve us misreading a situation or being inaccurate on what we thought a certain running back or maybe even wide receiver, et cetera, what their workload was going to be, what their target share was going to be. So this is the NFL, and this is kind of what we love about it. There's a lot of parity that's involved. There's a lot of variables in play. So absolutely significant. And then on the Patriots end, anytime you remove a player from a situation, it can only be a plus for those other players. How much of an increase it is for Damien Harris, I honestly don't know. And I think if anything, you see his ADP rise. I wasn't buying before, and I'm likely not buying now for sure. I think James White is actually the person who benefits the most. We see a situation now where he may be the primary pass catching back, the hurry up back, the third down back, someone who's well trusted, who's been entrenched in the system, who is very familiar with the system, and who is very, very trusted in the system. So especially in a situation where you have potentially a rookie quarterback coming in, you got to believe that the offensive coordinators and the head coach are going to feel very, very comfortable having him out there to help out. So definitely this affected, both teams and will have a significant impact on draft boards moving forward.
So you brought up Travis Etienne. Dio, he's out for the season. Relevant or irrelevant, that injury with the Jaguars?
I mean, it's obviously relevant just considering where he was being drafted. He was being drafted in the 5th round, 4th, 5th, 6th round at points during the draft season. And people were taking him in some instances, especially if you had like a zero running back build, people were taking him as their main running back. People were comfortable with him as their running back too. A first-round running back. The only other first-round running back was Najee, who was being taken in the first, second round. So people had high hopes for him, especially excited with that new offense that the Jaguars were going to have, that people weren't really sure what it was going to be yet. But you heard he was getting all these passing, like receiving work. We typically play a PPR-type format, so getting that receiving work does benefit the running back. So it's definitely relevant. It also is something that affected James Robinson's value. A lot of the angst people had as far as James Robinson, including myself, was the fact that the Jaguars had so much extra competition in the backfield this year compared to last year. New offensive system that coach brought in a running back he had history with. They drafted a running back in the first round, so people were kind of a little bit nervous as far as what they can get from James Robinson this year. With Etienne gone, obviously that totally changes things. Even Carlos Hyde, he doesn't really seem like much of a threat. He's going to be used. You don't want to just totally ignore him, but he doesn't seem like somebody that's going to be utilized a lot or the majority. So, James Robinson's value does skyrocket to some extent. And I say to some extent because personally, I'm a little nervous about that offense. And I'm not so much talking about what I've seen in their preseason games, more so what I just kind of have known, but was kind of, I don't want to say assuming, but maybe hoping it would change or improve. Specifically, we are talking about the team that had the worst record last year. So you can consider them probably the worst team in the NFL last year. What did they do since last year? Brought in a whole bunch of young talent, kind of are going through a rebuild, if you will. They don't really have any proven type stars on their team. On top of that, their offensive line was an issue last year. They didn't really improve that. And again, not to say that preseason was what put me on this, but preseason just kind of more showed me that I don't think that offensive line has improved. And then, the offense, the offense in general, we still really don't know what they're going to be. I mean, we know Urban is there. He's had success at Florida and Ohio State, but we still don't know what they're going to put on the field. And they're going to have growing pains. I mean, you can expect that. So to some extent, it helps. I mean, it does help James Robinson. I don't know how much I would value him now. I think he's probably too expensive for my taste right now.
What would you take him? Standard redraft.
That's a good
PPR.
question. We're not talking about FFPC?
FFPC.
Okay,
PPR,
FFPC.
home leagues. Give
I'd
both.
probably take him in the 4th, 5th.
Okay.
4th, 5th. But I think he's probably going in the 3rd right now.
Going
And I wouldn't be surprised.
He's going to background of 3rd, early 4th.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'd probably take him more in the 4th.
Now, I will say this about the Jaguars' offense, at least from a preseason standpoint. The offensive line, they've had some injuries, so I think they've been without 3 starters in the, at least the last preseason game. So, some of the issues made, they had backups playing. Now, hopefully those guys are healthy to start the year. I also think, they were very just vanilla with.
Oh yeah, they were definitely
putting.
vanilla.
But at some point, but at some point, your offense needs to move the ball. So it's not ideal in terms of what you want to see. They also didn't really have they didn't have DJ Chark, who's another field stretcher, who kind of opens things up. Hopefully with, Urban naming Trevor the starter week 1, him now getting all the first team reps. I don't know whether or not they plan on playing their starters in the final preseason game, but this is definitely one of those offenses, and the price is built into this. So it's not like, you're paying, except with James Robinson, and I'm not paying that 3rd round, 4th round price. But the price is built into all the other players, given where they're going. So it's one of those where, when you get into those later rounds, there is some hope, wish, optimism factor that goes into play in trying to tell yourself a story that fits to why this player may help you throughout the fantasy football season.
Now, real quick, because I'm sorry, I don't mean to do this, but I kind of want to go back to the last subject we had, because when you first started talking about Sony, for some reason my mind was focusing on Sony and the Patriots backfield, and I totally disregarded what it does to the Rams backfield until he started talking about it. So it just had me thinking, but we can make a lot of assumptions at this point as far as what's going to happen. But I really think nobody has any clue what can happen, and it can go any way.
Agreed.
And so it's like everybody can, quote unquote, take victory laps or say this is what is going to happen or X, Y, Z is how it's going to play out. But in reality, I mean, it's like the Marvel multi-universe. Like, it can go any way.
What if?
Yeah, it can literally go any way.
Found a way to bring in Marvel.
Because I say that because, okay, you look at somebody like Sony. This is a first-round running back just a few years ago. Okay?
Yep.
He has had the knee arthritis issues, but when he's played, I mean, I think he was playing his rookie year. And, the Patriots usually don't play their rookies. Yeah. So he was playing from the jump, and he was succeeding. Yeah. Now he's missed games, and the best ability is availability, and he didn't have that. So that was kind of faulty him. But like you said, they were showcasing him during this preseason. He didn't look bad.
No, and he was catching passes too.
Which is why last week I was so surprised when I said they were playing him in the 3rd quarter, because they were playing in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Yeah. Typically, you don't see that in the 2nd round. Now that we know he was on the trading block, it makes more sense. But he looked good.
And look, this is Belichick playing 4-dimensional chess. When was the last time you saw Sony Michel playing 3rd down, catching passes out of the backfield, being targeted 3 to 4 times in a half?
He amped him up.
I mean, other players, may get showcased, but nobody does it like that.
No, he looked good. Like he looked so good where I was starting to wonder about my Damien Harris love. Dang, because part of the reason I was high on Damien Harris from the jump was because I expected Sony to. Because there was murmurs he was going to get cut. Remember that?
There were too many running backs in that running back room to keep on a roster.
They were saying he was going to be gone. So the fact that he was looking so good, like, maybe that's not going to happen. But anyways, so back to the Rams side of it. So Sony has the pedigree. He's looked good. Darrell, he's had injury issues, which we talked about. Right. Like literally every year of his career, and this is going to be his 3rd year, he's had injury problems in season and off season. Yeah. He just got hurt the other day. Yeah. Now he's practicing, but he's in a red non-contact jersey, so they're trying to take it easy with him. You're getting ready for the season. You can't
it's right around
have
the corner.
Contact with your running back? Like, come on. Yeah. And not to mention they lost Raymond Calais the preseason game.
Yeah, that I
mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just another knock to the running back room.
The move makes sense. And I think sometimes your first reaction, your gut reaction, your first instincts are correct in some ways, because I think when we first talked about this, we were very much under the assumption that they were going to bring somebody in.
We said, especially if there's an injury, they have to bring somebody in.
They got to bring somebody in. So they finally did bring somebody in. It was a little bit late, but I 100% agree with what you said. Like, we have no idea where this may go.
Exactly. So because we can literally see it played out 3 different ways. We can see it where they brought Sony in. They don't trust Darrell. Sony is healthy. He's going to be their guy. Yeah. Because it's not really that hard for a running back to really get acclimated to a system.
They did it with C.J. Anderson. He literally called him off the couch.
Like, running backs have numbers for the holes. Yeah. Just run through this number hole, and you're good. I mean, you have different blocking schemes, but as far as just run the ball, it is the same thing. So he could become the lead back out the jump. And I think I've heard Adam Schefter maybe had a quote today saying that they plan for Sony to be the lead guy.
Well, he said that he could be the lead guy.
Right. Okay.
You gotta be careful. Be careful with Adam Schefter quotes, because sometimes he will it's not an issue with Adam Schefter. It's how people like take his quote.
Yeah.
Because they did the same thing with his Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, quote.
Yeah.
He didn't report that Dak Prescott was going to be, not 100% throughout the season. That was just his opinion.
Got you.
And he later, went back multiple times and said, look, I'm not saying don't draft Dak Prescott. I'm not saying that, he's not going to, produce and, be an elite quarterback. He's just saying that, based off of just kind of his just own assumption coming off an ankle injury,
Right.
that the latissimus injury that, maybe that he's not going to be 100%.
Right.
So
it could be played out that way.
Yeah.
It could be played out where Darrell is still the man. He's a guy that knows the system, been there 2 years. They're just getting support for him. I mean, Sony was going to be support to Damien, right? So he could be playing that same role for Darrell, just a support depth.
Yeah.
Okay. Or it could be a situation where it's a platoon.
Yeah.
They use both of them. They
Yeah.
interchange their running backs, and we've seen them do that.
Yeah.
So it literally can be anything. Anybody that says they know, unless they have a straight connection to Sean McVay, they're lying.
Yeah, and Sean McVay may not even know.
He may not. He might let it play out.
So don't waste high draft picks and high draft capital on these guys is what I would say.
Yeah.
If you want to, if you feel like you have a certain bill and you want to take a shot because you really love the talent of a Henderson in this offense, or you feel like you've been a Sony Michel truther. Shout out to
Sony Michel truther.
We had one who reached out to us who was very adamant
Sony
about
Michel
Michel being
those exist,
being a 3-down back. He whether or not you agree with it, he was a first-round pick. So
is his skill talent that much different than Darrell Henderson's?
Oh, absolutely. They're very different types of backs. And this is the thing about Henderson. This is why I was taking him. Number one, for the most part, I'm just looking at the running back, the lead running back in the Rams offense,
system.
And so I wanted that. That's why Henderson to me was appealing. Because in certain bills, when you're getting, especially if you're getting them in the 5th round, I felt like that was value at the current
So it goes
stage.
to what we were talking about last week then.
Yeah.
The talent and situation paradox.
Exactly. So
you was going with the situation
and now the situation has completely changed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to this is not a prideful game. This is not I'm on Darrell Henderson. I'm going to ride this, till I die. I'm going to die on this hill. I don't care about dying on any hills. I have no issues stating when I'm wrong or switching up my. You gotta be
like water.
Yeah,
like Bruce Lee.
You gotta be like water.
Embrace the chaos. You gotta embrace
that's
the
my
chaos.
thing. Embrace the chaos. Yeah.
So this is but 100% go into this situation understanding that literally anything can happen.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. You could win both ways. Because both these guys have injury issues. So if you drafted Darrell Henderson
no matter
in
how
the
it
12th
starts,
round,
it could end up totally different.
or you drafted him in the 5th round, he could still be a league winner.
Yeah.
And if you end up drafting Michel or you drafted him earlier on in the 18th round, you thought you had a steal, and now he's maybe you thinking he's maybe in a platoon or maybe even the lead back.
Yeah.
He could kill you multiple weeks because maybe he's just a 2-down back and he's getting 60 to 70 yards a game with no receptions.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, sometimes that's why players like this. That's why when it comes to roster construction, is very important in terms of having guys you feel comfortable in your starting lineup, because this is a situation that I want to see play out for the first few weeks. Get some information, and then be able to kind of make more informed decisions as I go forward.
And one more point before we move on. Don't let me not bring up Damien Harris. I do think this does benefit him. Maybe not a whole bunch, because, again, when I first initially was talking about Harris, I expected Sony to be gone. So it's almost like it's just now playing out the way I kind of envisioned. But Damien Harris's ADP was rising. I was seeing him going as high as a 6th, maybe in the 5th. When I was talking about him, he was more so going in the 8th and 9th. And for me, it was more of a value of a guy I could see being a main back that you could take late. Once value is gone, the allure is not there anymore for certain players. And we kind of talked about that during this week. We talk up or we hype up players because they're a value, but once they're not a value, we don't hype them up as much. But now with this news, I'm guessing Damien Harris's value will keep going up. I don't know.
6th, 7th round.
Maybe? I can't.
I think he'll probably settle in 7th round fairly easy.
7th is not
and you may
bad.
See him in the 6th round.
6, I don't know if I can do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it's tough. if you've been drafting all offseason, whether it's
Right,
best ball or
right.
redraft, you get a guy at value, and now you're thinking to yourself, man, I was able to get him 3 to 4 rounds earlier.
Right.
And there's a lot that's in play there. Sometimes that's where he should be going, or he may still be a value. Maybe maybe you're still getting him at a round value.
Or another thing is injuries occur and guys are taken off the board.
Yeah.
So everything kind of condenses a little
Exactly.
bit. And then also, it's just a shuffle of the deck.
Yeah.
These same players are going.
Yeah.
If somebody that was in the 8th round is going in the 5th now, that means somebody that was going in the 5th is probably going a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But he's still there. You know, so I got you. But yeah.
All right, guys. So let's move on. Let's talk about Adam Trotman. Is slated to miss a few weeks.
I didn't even know this was on the show sheet.
Yes. Adam Trotman. I know that you were high on
blocked
him.
this out.
No, man. We got to talk about it. Relevant or irrelevant? And also, how does this affect the targets to Callaway? Because I think 2 of us were on Marquez Callaway.
So obviously, any injury is relevant that requires multiple weeks because you never know if there's going to be a setback.
Now, they say it's going to be a few weeks, but he's getting all these second opinions. I hate when they talk about opinions, So, but they're saying 3 weeks, so he's not gone forever.
Yeah.
He's not even gone for a long time, so definitely take that into account.
So, and then also, Nick Vannett had a little bit of an injury as well. Obviously, this is a tight end room that has seen a number of tight ends depart from the 2020 season. So, we all looked at Troutman as, okay, the ceiling, and I don't think anybody thought he was going to reach the ceiling, which was Jimmy Graham status. But we at least were hoping for like a Jared Cook, somebody getting a majority of the targets, a healthy Jared Cook, someone who could play the entire season. And so, what we saw throughout the, particularly, the second preseason game and the first preseason game was the usage was not necessarily what I wanted to see. And I think I talked about it last podcast, which is what I wanted to see him in the next preseason game really start to run more routes. Targets, I at least need to see the quarterback look your way. Mm-hmm. To me, that gives me some idea of kind of what the progression is and things like that. And I understand these aren't plays that they may necessarily be running through the regular season, but I at least wanted to see that. Instead, what I saw was Juwan Johnson, okay? And this has been a guy that has been getting buzz in camp. And part of what I was doing was ignoring it to some degree because Troutman was out. He was actually injured, I think, during OTAs or at the early part of training camp to begin with. So it wasn't like he's been practicing and healthy this entire time. So Jawan Johnson is a converted wide receiver. There may not be a tight end in this offense, but from a Troutman standpoint, definitely, he was somebody that at times I was reaching for. He's one of those guys that, I want to try to acquire because I was trying to build up my shares. I felt like I was very underweight and didn't want to miss out. But he's definitely somebody that right now I am letting fall, but I will still take a chance on. I think I took him actually in the 14th round of a main event, and I think I backed him up with Juwan Johnson.
Y'all know how I feel about preseason, so that really didn't bother me too much. As far as Juwan Johnson, he was taking advantage of his opportunities, but again, he's a wide receiver playing tight end. He's a wide receiver initial trade, so he should be good running routes and catching. So that wasn't a surprise. Now,
but that's what we want our tight ends.
No, I'm not knocking Juwan. Yeah. I like him actually. I do like him as a prospect because, like you just said, that's what we want. Yeah. But that didn't make me lower on Troutman because, to me, the talent is still there. So it's not a talent issue. Yeah. It could be a situation where they play both of them, or they share the load. We don't know.
We don't.
But there's not many options in New Orleans right now. Point blank period. They need playmakers. Mm-hmm. They need talent. Troutman is talented. What bothers me right now is Troutman can't seem to stay healthy. And that wasn't a concern. I didn't think he had injury concerns in the past. But if that's going to be an issue, eventually they're going to start looking a different direction. Mm-hmm. And if Juwan keeps showing up, Juwan might take that job. Now, Juwan, again, being a wide receiver, he's going to have to get used to blocking because they do plan to run the ball. Shout out to Tony Jones. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get back to that another time. But yeah, they do want to run the ball. So if Juwan Johnson's going to be out there, he's going to have to block. I've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it one more time. I would not be surprised if, again, y'all know I think Winston should and probably will win the job. Don't be surprised if Taysom Hill is playing a lot more tight end.
Oh, absolutely. If Winston,
So what's happening is now you're having all these other guys in the room because Troutman is not taking control of the job.
Yeah.
I think if Troutman was out there and did his thing, they wouldn't worry about the tight end position.
Yeah.
But that's where my concern is.
This is what I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that Vannett is the blocking tight end and Troutman is a tight end that can split out.
It's crazy.
We don't know.
I didn't even know Vannett was on the Saints.
Yeah.
Honestly, so that was kind of like, oh wow, he's there.
Yeah.
But
I don't see Juwan blocking.
Juwan,
not at the stage. At least Troutman, he showed in the Senior Bowl and kind of at least per scout reports that he could block.
No, he definitely.
And they
can.
love him as a blocker. He showed last year based off his grading that he could block, and I think he showed a little bit too well that he could block.
Yeah.
So,
no, and Jawan is still learning the position.
Yeah,
he was just recently converted over.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
It's going to take time for him.
A Jacob Harris type.
Yeah. I don't know if Jacob Harris played a little tight end in college. Maybe he didn't, or they maybe used him that way.
Yeah.
It's going to take Juwan Johnson some time, but Troutman just needs to come back and take control of that job.
So right now you're saying buy the dip.
Okay, so for me, it's kind of the same discussion we just had a second ago. When I was taking Troutman, I was taking him more the 11th, 12th round.
Well, now you can get him in the 14th.
He didn't start to creep to the 10th and 9th. If you're telling me he's going in the 14th now, yes.
You're buying a dip.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
We need to hear you say it.
I'm definitely buying the dip.
Okay.
You're taking because what's happening is you're taking a tight end that has high upside that could eventually be the man, and all this preseason or whatever's going on now would just be irrelevant. In the 14th round?
Yeah. This is one of those situations that is completely unknown. So if you're throwing darts in these later rounds,
because those are the guys that you're probably going to drop anyway if they don't work out.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying take a high pick. Now, I'm definitely not going to take him in the 8th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, but that's where he was kind of going now, the 9th. So, no. But I still like him. The thing with, and I'll get on my soapbox on preseason another time, but the thing about preseason is once the season starts to play out, we forget everything that happened in the preseason. Mm-hmm. It's like nothing mattered in that preseason. It's like a whole nother game. So
even like the Marquez Callaway, him, exploding.
No, he looked good.
He looked good, but that's exactly how I thought he could look.
He looked damn good.
When we talked about him, from a standpoint of he can run the underneath routes.
Right.
He's not a burner, but he can make contested catches. Right. And when you go and look at his YouTube collegiate highlights, what you saw Monday night is exactly what you saw in
big
college.
Target. Yeah.
But he ain't never did it in a game.
He was a rookie.
Yeah, okay.
But no.
He's
when
a
he got
guy
the opportunity, he showed up, because I went back and looked at it. I think his reception per target or whatever the percentage. I think it was something like 90%.
Forget the stats, the eye test. He looked like a star out there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He looked like
that game. I don't want to go that far.
No.
He did.
He played. I'm not saying he was a star, but he looked like somebody that you could see being like a main guy.
I can't go that far.
Well,
I've seen a lot of players who are just kind of average make a lot of great plays.
No. I agree. But what I'm literally saying is the game we just saw, he looked the part. I'm not saying that's him. I'm not saying he can continue it. But
I know I'm not getting any Marquez Callaway.
Oh no, it's too late.
He's going in the 8th,
it's too
7th, 8th
late.
round. And we have no idea. That's another thing. Michael Thomas, we really don't know when he's coming back or how healthy he's going to be. Is he? Right. So if you're drafting Marquez Callaway in the 8th, 9th round, you got to ask yourself, okay, am I drafting him knowing that I'm only going to have him for half the season, or do I just feel like Michael Thomas is not going to be there?
I think you have him the whole season.
So what?
I think if he produces the way everybody is assuming he's going to produce, I think he'll be there the whole season with Michael Thomas there.
An 8th round pick, worth an 8th round pick?
No.
Okay, that's
but people that are taking him in 8th round, they look at him as somebody that they can use, and I think he'll still be usable when Michael Thomas comes back.
A savvy move would have been to draft Thomas and Callaway. That'd have been a sad
Yeah, but
move.
Thomas himself is still going in like the 8th round.
Yeah.
8th, 9th.
But I'm saying beforehand, you could have drafted Thomas in the 8th round, and you could have got Callaway in the 12th and 13th
Yeah.
round.
Some of my drafts have him, like not drafted at all.
Who?
Callaway.
We don't need to go into that.
Oh, you're talking about the old drafts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. He was unknown because remember Michael Thomas was still supposed to be
Right.
back. But don't forget about Traquan. Just don't. Traquan.
All right.
Yeah, he didn't even play.
Yeah, he didn't play.
That's the thing.
He's gonna come back at some
and
point.
That's even though I was on on Callaway beforehand, like to me that's a situation where I didn't pay much attention to the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like it literally changed none of my view on Callaway. I didn't get more excited.
Yeah.
I didn't feel a need to take a victory lap and say, "Oh, that's my guy," because number one, Traquan didn't play.
Right.
Number two, they were playing against backups.
I don't know.
I think they were playing against backups.
Who they playing? The Jaguars.
Or they were playing backups, or they were playing against the Jaguars.
The roster,
Either or, they were
yeah,
playing. Yeah.
yeah, the roster is the
So
roster.
irrespective, and they were and it's the preseason. So these catches, there was like single high safety, and he was like single covered, and it was basically him versus like a backup or.
I mean,
subpar
the way
corner.
I see it,
I'm not drawing too
the
much
way
from
I
that.
see it, they didn't target anybody else that I can recall. Can y'all recall them targeting any other Saints receiver?
The Saints have no other
They
receivers.
had no other receivers.
So eventually Traquan will be back.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's talented. He's gonna get some kind of work.
Absolutely.
To be determined how much, but he's gonna be utilized.
Kamara will be back.
Yeah, Kamara didn't
hopefully
play.
Troutman will be back.
Tony Jones. Speaking of Tony Jones, real quick, Dynasty people, man, across all my Dynasty leagues, I've seen him going crazy amounts of fab. Like,
I think he's the Kamara backup. That's what I think.
again, I said it last week, man. If
No,
they-
I mean not the handcuff. So I think this
no,
is,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So I think it's
Like, you
Kamara.
playing around the Kamara role.
Yeah, it's Kamara and Latavius is what I'm assuming.
still-
And I think he's the backup to Kamara. should
Y'all
Kamara
know what
get
I
hurt.
said last week. Don't be surprised if Murray's let go.
That sounds like a hit.
Yeah.
Is he going to be let go?
Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Is he going to be let go?
Okay, let's put it like this. I'm not drafting Murray at all, but I'm taking
there you
Tony
go.
Jones.
Okay.
So
Okay.
take
All right,
take
cool.
it however you want to take it.
Okay.
Let's stay on tight ends for a second. TJ Hock going really high in drafts. We talked about him last week about whether is he the 4th or 5th tight end off the board. He's banged up right now. Relevant or irrelevant?
It sounds like he's healthy.
No, he's back now.
Yeah, he's
He
back.
practiced.
He's back and healthy. So he was banged up initially. Whether or not he should be going. Where
It was
he's
a
going.
shoulder, AC,
Yeah.
AC joint.
Actually, I talked to Dr. Reyes about that AC joint and
okay.
whether that's
Okay.
going to be lingering throughout the season. Let's play that clip for a second.
Okay.
TJ Hawkinson actually suffered a shoulder injury on August 10th during practice. Most reports showed that he was going for a pass, either taken to the ground or diving for the ball, and the cornerback landed on top of him. And so in most cases, when the shoulder hits the ground, especially when you're diving, the shoulder is going to go down and hit the ground. It's usually going to hit over this AC joint. And so most commonly, the AC joint is the one sprained or damaged. Depending on what ligaments were damaged would then include grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. You can have bruising to the bone itself, or you can have bruising to the muscle. And so any of those are possibilities that could happen when you're taken down to the ground. Even possible damage to the shoulder joint itself. We call it the glenohumeral joint. And so those are all possibilities. He is actually back at practice on Monday, this past Monday, and so he is actually wearing a red non-contact jersey during this time, and so he's able to go through some team drills and walkthroughs. And however, they're going to be looking to ramp up his activity over this next week, barring any setbacks. He has actually missed preseason 1 and preseason 2. I anticipate that they might keep him out on week 3, but will definitely be ready for that week 1 opener.
So even though he's banged up preseason, all injuries matter. Do you still see TJ Hock the same as you did before? Is he still 4th or 5th tight end off the board?
Yes, most definitely. This is not going to matter in 2 weeks, and the season will be here in 2 weeks. So the way I view TJ Hawkinson
Here's what I don't
last
get.
week, I still
Because we
view him the
made a
same
big
way.
deal about this in our teaser a couple episodes back. Y'all said all injuries matter.
Yeah.
There's an extra game this season. a guy is already banged up in preseason.
Look,
Man, this is a long season. Like, how does that not
Okay.
matter? How does that
Everybody
not
at
affect
some point
your
is
ADP?
going to have some kind
this
of.
needs to be said, okay? People, listen. This is the NFL. Nobody is 100% healthy.
Exactly. Everybody
ever.
by the end of the season
Ever.
is going to be like the Walking Dead.
Nobody is
They're all going to be
100%
hurt.
healthy.
Yes, towards the
ever.
end of the season, yes,
No,
but
no.
I want-
Week 1. Coming out of week 1, nobody
They're
will be
probably
100%.
hurt right
They're
now.
probably hurt right now. Nobody is 100%
Going through
healthy.
practice.
Okay? Don't get.
So-
I mean, when we say it's relevant, it's a data point. Sometimes it's really significant depending on the injury. Sometimes it's minor. Sometimes
You know the biggest barometer for me, how are they practicing?
yeah.
That's really all that
he's
matters.
practicing.
Because his leg could be cut off. If he's full go, 11 on 11s, he's good for me.
Okay, that's a Dale quote. Now that's 15 quotes.
He's good for me.
All right. Do we have DeAndre
So-
Swift? Are we talking
Let's
about
talk about DeAndre Swift for a
Okay.
second. So DeAndre Swift.
He's been wanting to talk about DeAndre
Yeah, so
Swift.
this
Go ahead.
this
Go
I
ahead.
mean
talk about the quote.
Talk
Go ahead.
about DeAndre
I don't
Swift.
really just want to talk, but this kind of goes along the lines of what we've been talking about. Okay, he's been out with the groin. Unlike TJ Hawkinson,
You gotta give people background. Like, where's this stemming from?
It's a groin
that's
injury.
where I'm going.
Okay, go ahead. I thought you were just diving right
That's
into it.
that's
My
what I'm
bad.
saying.
Go
So
ahead.
he's been out or limited in practice with a groin injury, and so Dan Campbell came out and said, "Oh, I'm really concerned about his conditioning. I'm concerned whether or not he's going to be ready for us week 1." And people took that and just ran with it, and they just took that one little quote and assumed that he was going to be out week 1 or out week 2, etc. When literally nothing has changed about DeAndre Swift's situation. If anything, if you read the entire quote, which also said that they were going to ramp up his activity, that he was going to get a heavy workload in that very same practice, if anything, his situation has improved. So this is one of those things on multiple levels. This is why we always preach #stay ready. Because if you knew DeAndre Swift had a groin injury and you were concerned about him practicing, then you shouldn't be taking him then you shouldn't have been taking him in the 3rd round anyway. I wasn't necessarily that concerned with it, but this news should not have affected your ADP, at least in a negative way. Again, this is a situation where he is ramping up activity. He is practicing more than what he was beforehand. So for me, this is good news. I am 100% buying the dip on DeAndre Swift. I'm seeing him go in the 4th rounds now. That just makes me want to draft more. Every time I think I'm done, they pull me back in. Okay, so seeing 4th round DeAndre Swift, like I get jealous.
Right.
People post these boards and people really aren't even like looking at it. I'm like, DeAndre Swift in the 4th round. Let me sign up for another one. So again, it's one thing to be concerned about DeAndre Swift, his role, the player, etc. Or before this, you were just concerned about the injury, or maybe his just injury concerns overall. We know he has a history of concussions. But this quote is fluff. Fluff comes in positive and it comes in negative. This was negative fluff. Dan Campbell himself, when they reported this, they reported the fact that they were going to increase his workload. Okay. It didn't say that he was going to miss week 1 and miss week 2. He said he was concerned about his conditioning. I took this basically, and again, you can go online and Google it. I took it more as, okay, look, the guy really, we're relying on this guy. He hasn't really been practicing. And he specifically said conditioning. He said, I'm concerned about his conditioning. I'm concerned where he's going to be week 1, etc. So, yeah, maybe they want to limit him week 1 because of his conditioning. But guess what? We're like 2 to 3 weeks away from the season. So, for me, I'm buying, especially if you're telling me he ramped up his workload. Until I hear the word setback, I keep using that word setback.
And to be honest, Dr. Carlos Reyes pretty much said the same thing. I got a
You don't
chance
even
to
need
talk
to listen
to
to
him.
Dr. Carlos
You don't
Reyes.
need to talk to him.
I'm just saying,
Listen, no, I
unless
got
I
you.
hear setback.
He essentially said the
Okay,
same
let's
thing.
listen to Carlos.
But you want to listen to Carlos? No.
Let's listen to
Go
Carlos.
ahead. Go ahead.
I
Like,
get
I'll let
a
you.
little, I get a little heated with something.
Let me play the clip because I'm interested because it's something that remember with injuries for me, I don't really care when they say he'll be back. I just know he's dealing with the injury. I don't really know his practice reports. For some reason, I haven't really been able to cross that. If he's back, then cool. But if he's still kind of working himself back, then it's still the DeAndre Swift watch for me. I think the bigger concern is, and what it's kind of always been for me with Swift, is Jamal Williams. However way that's going to play out, I don't know, but he's going to be used. maybe talent will prevail and Swift will be the guy regardless. But we've just been getting weird.
This is my counter. This is my counter to that. Okay, people are willing to take Austin Eckler number 3 overall. Mm-hmm. You're a dynasty guy. Who's a better running back?
That's a good question, man. They're
okay. Who has the better pedigree?
The better pedigree is Swift.
Okay,
yeah, definitely.
So, who would you say has the better offensive line?
I might say
and we can say
it's close. They both have good offensive line. I mean, you're talking about two players that are almost.
I'm talking about 2020, 2019. Who had the better offensive line?
I'm assuming it's the Lions from
compared to the Lions now versus Austin Eckler before.
Yeah, probably the Lions.
And I don't know how good the Chargers' offensive line. I know they got a lot of pieces in. We love that, but there's a lot of young bodies, not a lot of continuity. We can't just assume that they're going to be a great offense. They got great pieces, but we don't necessarily know they're going to be a great offensive line. But either way, so I'm looking at the Lions team that has a better offensive line than what Austin Eckler has had in the past.
Right.
They have the same offensive coordinator. We're looking at a running back who has a better pedigree. I think Deandre Swift is a better running back than Austin Eckler.
You're.
So my thing is, like, if you're willing to take Austin Eckler, some people take him, 3, 4, 5 overall, and then we're worried about Jamal. Austin Eckler played with Melvin Gordon and still put up elite numbers.
You're having the debate about DeAndre Swift's value just in general, and we've had that debate before. And it is what it is. Everybody kind of has their views, and he was being taken where he was taken. Mm-hmm. But I guess what I'm more saying is from what you're saying now, this specific injury or quote from the coach has made his value adjust one way or another.
And it shouldn't. I'm saying is if you've looked at the practice report, he's been limited, not participating in team activities, out preseason.
But what I'm saying,
you have this quote. And then at the end of the quote, which no one which they just, every Twitter report cut out, said that they were ramping up and giving him a heavy workload in that very practice.
But what I'm saying is that quote or that information right there, to me, shouldn't be what's adjusting his ADP. Because if it is an injury that's not that bad, again, if you're saying he's practicing, he'll be back, even if it's not week 1, week 2, week 3. And once week 6 is here, you'll look back and say it wasn't even that big of a deal. He missed a week or so. That shouldn't be the thing to me that's swaying his ADP. So if there is a dip now due to that and you were on the Swift train, I would say take advantage of it. But again, I think the thing that should be affecting his ADP more so is just the surrounding news is going around his role. And that's been there for a while, so I think
Austin Eckler, Melvin Gordon.
Right, and again, we've had the Swift discussion all summer. Yeah. Ever since the Jamal 1A, 1B quotes were out. So you should have kind of already thought your way through that and kind of decide where you want. I don't have a problem with Swift, but I can see people that have reservations as far as his value. I get it. I'll still draft Swift. I've drafted Swift because for me it's about talent. But some people value talent more. Some people value situation more. Some people take both into account. It just depends on how I'm feeling that day. But again, I don't think this injury should be the thing that's making his value go to the 4th round.
You can't like Austin Eckler and not like DeAndre Swift because both have had injury issues. Both basically play for the same offensive coordinator. And DeAndre Swift, the Lions defense is going to be bad. They're going to be, I think, worse than the Chargers defense. The line is theoretically, in my mind, I have the line graded out as better. So, and I don't think Jamal Williams currently is better than what Melvin Gordon was when he was.
Sounds like a lot of work for T.J. Hawkinson.
Say what?
Go ahead, though.
All right, sorry. We've been keeping the doctor on hold for a while.
Man, let's not even play the clip at this point.
No, we should play the clip.
Go ahead.
He put work into it. Let's play it.
All right. Let's play the clip.
DeAndre Swift is an interesting case as well. Most reports showed that he had groin tightness around August 5th during practice is one where the earlier reports were stated. Ever since then, he's been limited in practice and receiving a lot of rehabilitation and as well as load management. He has not participated in any of the preseason week 1, week 2. Most reports state that it is coming from a groin. And so there are many things that can come from the groin. It could be the adductor muscles that live on the inside of the leg. It can be several other specific muscles that live on the inside, such as a gracilis, pectineus, iliopsoas, which is your hip flexor. And so it can be any number of those things. It can be in the joint itself. And so to speculate what it is would be unfair. However, most reports show that he is participating in full practice now, but without contact. They are ramping up his activity to determine whether he can start to increase his intensity, to also determine if he has enough capacity to withstand the deceleration and cutting movements that are necessary, especially during football. And so we're going to be looking at, they're going to be ramping it up over this next week and probably miss week 3 and then look for that season 1 opener push. It's all dependent on well he tolerates cutting, sprinting, being tackled, being pushed, and then also ramping up his speed and deceleration activities. We're going to be looking and monitoring those reports to make sure that there are no setbacks. This is an injury that does have a high injury of re-aggravating if they don't allow it to fully heal. And so he does have an opportunity to return to full capacity if they allow it to rest. And so look for that week 1 push for Deandre Swift. However, have a contingency plan if the event that he misses week 1. I don't expect week 2, but just have a plan in place.
All right, guys, I want to talk about roster construction for a second. Let's say that you draft a tight end in the first round, whether it's Kels or Waller. Let's talk about strategy after that. Like, are you going RB, RB, RB? Are you just kind of filling the board? AB, I know you like to draft a lot of running backs. We've kind of talked about that and even put out a statement through the Twitter this week. What are you guys' strategies for roster construction after you start with the tight end?
I mean, so if I go tight end early, usually you're making that play with the idea that you were locking down an elite player at that position where there's, a scarcity of elite options. So you're basically telling yourself that, okay, I'm going to win every week at the tight end position. And so the idea from that point forward is to build a team that can crush at all positions. Now, clearly, you just took a tight end with the first round pick if you went Kelsey or Waller in an FFPC, or even Waller in the second round in your redraft leagues.
Or Kittle, I think Kittle.
Or Kittle. So what happens is that now you no longer have that top tier running back, that top tier wide receiver. So from that point on, I'm trying my best to ignore the tight end position unless there is just significant value that falls to me. And I've talked about before, I've had a Kelsey, Kittle build, etc. I'm someone who obviously, does volume drafting. So I at points, not a lot, but at points I do want to try and, maybe create some unique builds, some, I call them fun builds, etc. But for the most part, now I'm just trying to maximize at those other positions. I don't necessarily know that you have to go running back right after you go Kelsey. What I'm really targeting is the most elite player at the next position. So if I feel like a top-tier wide receiver falls to me, I'm going to go that route. If I feel like a running back who has potential, top 3 RB, overall RB1 potential falls to me, then I'm going to go that route. Definitely later in the draft, in any draft, I like, just accumulating as many running backs as possible, running backs that I think can help me obviously throughout, league-winning, handcuffs, etc. But me going Kelsey does not dictate me going running back, because I feel like I'm going to miss out on that position. If I'm weak at RB2, so be it, because again, you're trying to make sure that, if it's, you're starting 8, that at least 6 to 7 of your starters can beat 6 to 7 of your league mate starters throughout the year on a week-to-week basis. So it really just depends on what falls to you. I think I really kind of practice more value-based drafting at that point. And then you get to a point where, like, maybe it's, you end up going 2 wide receivers. Well, that's when I make that pivot and draft based off of positional needs. but I'm not going to reach and grab someone like, who would it be for me? A Josh Jacobs in the 4th round when I'm staring at, someone like Tyler Lockett or Mike Evans, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, et cetera, these guys. I'm going to draft those guys. And then when I get to a point where I feel like, okay, I really need to lock in this running back position, then I may pivot off of that. So there's always a little bit of transition where there's a teardrop, when it comes to the wide receivers. But you going, tight end early on does not dictate you having to go running back with, next 1 or 2 picks.
Dio, you start off with Waller back end of the first. What are you doing in those next 4 rounds?
So yeah, you actually spoke on it correctly. I am not probably going to have much Kelsey because I'm not a guy that wants to take my tight end super early. Kelsey's going like the 3rd, 4th overall right now.
In FFPC.
Maybe the 5th in FFPC.
And redrafts, mid-rounds, mid to later first round.
Right. Still first round. I don't even think I'll do him with that, but I don't see – I don't value the tight end position. We're talking about FFPC tight end premium, so I get why Kelsey's value is that high. I just don't – I don't like my builds when I do that much. Back end of the first – that's when you start to see certain running backs that you probably value higher, maybe first round value falling. And you kind of are probably in that 10, 11, 12 hole. And that that even if you skip one, that you're going to have one that comes back to you in the second round that you like. So in that situation, I am considering going Waller with that first pick. And I like Waller. I like Waller a lot. So I'm not mad about that build. I've even played some situations where I was able to get Waller in the early second. So I do like that, but to me that's still a top-end running back build. That just is where I have also a high-end tight end in Waller. Or maybe I'll take Kittle in the second round, whether the mid or the late second. But if hypothetically speaking, if we do start to talk about taking Kelsey or Waller in that first round, I don't pigeonhole, kind of like what Abby was saying. I don't pigeonhole myself into a certain strategy. I then start to look at just straight value. I just want to see what's falling to me, because if I have such a high-end tight end, and like Abby's saying, you expect that player to dominate that position in all your matchups throughout the season, then I want to also have other players that I can depend to dominate their matchups. So I just want people that just with these high ceilings. And then once you have this type of build where you have these high ceiling players, you can start to utilize the season to find other players that are kind of hidden gems at the moment that can fill in those holes. Guys that you didn't know at the moment were going to be valuable to your team. Come week 15, they're staples in your starting lineup, i.e. Myles Gaskin from last year. You know, so I do want to kind of, again, like he was saying, I don't want to reach. I don't want to take a running back for the sake of just filling my running back hole because, my team has all these other players. I don't have a running back and, I just need a guy. No, I want to take a guy that I feel like is good value at this point, because if I miss out on him, I'll figure it out later. Yeah. Hopefully my other players can kind of, make ends or whatever, take advantage. So I do like the high-end wide receiver builds from tight end, early tight end. I like the way those look, but that's kind of when you decide, okay, I just want to go zero running back. I don't so much like the tight end running back build, because I start to think that's kind of when you start to creep into that dead zone of the running backs. No, what I'm saying, the third round, it depends. That's your Carson, David Montgomery, Swift. But now I'm seeing those guys go in the back end of the third. If you're in the front end of the third, do you want to reach to any of those guys? I don't know. I'd probably feel more comfortable with the receiver. Again, it's really all about how value falls to me. I don't even mind going tight end early and then considering going another tight end in the third or fourth, or even the second. Like if you could pull off a Kelsey Waller build, oh my gosh. Domination.
I doubt
that. I'm jealous already thinking about it. The potential. So
in the tight end premium.
Yeah, in tight end premium, for sure. But again, I don't usually do many tight end builds.
One thing that I do try to avoid if I do go tight end early is I try to avoid, if at all possible, grabbing my QB early. I think it really pigeonholes
Explain
you.
that.
Well, because when I draft, I really draft with the idea that, again, I want to make sure I have a starting lineup that I feel comfortable with. Okay, I don't want a bunch of just like high upside picks. The Mecole Hardmans and Elijah Moores of the world, and then week 1, week 2 come around, and I'm having
Can't even play them.
Yeah,
Right.
you don't feel comfortable playing these guys, okay? Because so I really want to make sure I have a legitimate build, especially in these leagues where you have a larger starting roster requirements. So FFPC where 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, or NFFC where you have 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a flex. So if you go tight end early, okay, yes, you kind of lock down that position. Positional scarcity, you're excelling at that position. But then if you go quarterback early and you say, okay, I really love Josh Allen, and you go him in the 5th. Well, now you're going to be hurting at your positional picks.
Start getting behind.
Exactly. And so the discrepancy between, quarterbacks from the top tier to the mid tier to the lower tier, I think are smaller compared to the running backs from the top tier to the mid tier to the lower tier, and the same for the wide receivers. So those are usually positions, and this is not any analytical data. This is just, kind of what I have surmised over like the years of me drafting and what my experience has been. But I think that, ideally, I'm taking a shot at one of those. It's either the tight end or it's the quarterback. Sometimes you can pull it off both. I think when you're doing that, it's a gamble, and it's a gamble that may pay off if you can, especially, if you feel like you have some like value picks later on that you were really targeting that you feel may be able to easily slot, or start for you, week 1, week 2, etc. But for the most part, I think if I can help it, I'm trying to avoid, starting off with the early tight end and then going with an early quarterback and putting myself in a very, very deep hole where I feel like I'm fighting to get out.
So let's continue on with roster construction for a second. I want to talk about the receiver dead zone. Let's talk about what rounds those are, because there is a receiver dead zone, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
We just coined that, okay? So
right.
If this somehow catches on, we were the first and 15th, the wide receiver dead zone.
All right. Let's talk about what rounds consist of the dead zone, and what do you do during that time?
All right. So I was kind of joking. This is kind of a play, obviously, on the RB dead zone. I think this is more in play given the current state of where wide receivers are going. I really think a lot of these wide receivers, we're hoping that they pay off this 4th, 5th round value, but there are big and major question marks. And I think some of these guys are going to be spike week guys where you're going to have some weeks where they pay off, but you're going to have a lot of dud weeks that may hurt your lineups. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think, really I'm looking at it, I'd probably say round 6 through 8, okay? That's a tough round because there's not a lot, I think that's where we're starting to see some of the running backs getting pushed down to. Mm-hmm. And so I've kind of made the pivot now with this idea, knowing that these wide receivers, the ones that I was getting in the 6th round, the Tyler Lockett's, or late 5th, Adam Thielen, the Cooper Kupp's, and those guys you're getting late 5th, late 6th, and Ayuk lived in the 6th round for quite some time. Those guys are all being pushed up now. And Jerry Jeudy, oh my God,
Yeah.
we were loving Jerry Jeudy in the 7th round. Now he's going in the 5th round. So for me, understanding that, now I've kind of changed how I draft. Okay, so I at least want to get one of those higher end wide receivers, and I'm still, probably going, with 2 running backs early on, but I'm trying to switch it up now. So maybe I go a tight end and a tight end premium during those mid rounds. I'm, probably maybe more attacking quarterback in those mid rounds, something that's a surefire thing, and then just waiting, because I think a lot of those guys that are going in those rounds, there are very, very similar guys that are going rounds, 7 through 10 that I feel very, very comfortable with. We saw Devonte Smith get pushed down the board. We may come to see that Devonte Smith may not be all that different from
Devonte Smith's getting pushed down the board?
Oh, yeah. During his injury scare, he was going in the 8th round, back into the 7th round. So, and now I'm pivoting into guys like Myles
That's a
Gaskins.
mistake.
Yeah, Myles
That's a mistake,
Gaskins, who's
folks.
going in the 7th round. Raheem Mostert, who's someone I'm really taking a liking to. I don't care that it's an RBBC. I know this is a running team and a very running off in a run, in a great running scheme. All he really needs is 12 to 15 touches a game. We've seen what he can do with that. To me, that's and really like they've kept him on bubble wraps. He hasn't been injured, but he's not playing. The only other player that they've really done that with is George Kittle. That told
George
me a
Kittle's
lot.
practicing too, though.
They're both practicing, but they're not playing in the preseason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of telling me a lot, I'm kind of pivoting to guys like that now, who I feel just a little bit more comfortable. And it's not that I'm like saying don't draft those guys in those rounds. It's just that I like a lot of guys that I have in the same tier that go 2 to 3 rounds later. So I'm just kind of making that pivot. I'm not forcing myself to, draft a 6th or a late 5th round wide receiver that I don't have graded out at that current ADP.
So Dio, what is your strategy during that time? Because it seems like in drafts as of late, receivers are being bumped up quite a bit. What's your strategy during that? What we're coining as receiver dead zone?
Well, to be honest with you, I really didn't even know there was a receiver dead zone. So
Yeah,
this
I just made it
this
up.
is all new. This is all
Maybe we
new
don't want to call it a dead zone. Maybe we want to call it
Well,
we should probably call it something else.
But it's interesting hearing Abby talk about it because it kind of like what I like to always say as far as just drafts in general and these boards. All of these players are just being shuffled around, Players that are going higher now just really means other players are going lower probably than when they were going before. So and we've seen it, and we even talked about it, most likely it's due to injuries or situation changes, but if these wide receivers that we were taking in the 6th and 7th round are now going in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, that means the players that were going there initially are now going after these guys. Mm-hmm. So if we all know the running back dead zone is round 4 to 6.
Some say 3.
And now we're saying the wide receiver dead zone is 6 to 8. Sounds to me like the ideal strategy is wide receivers during the running back dead zone and running backs during the wide receiver dead
running
zone.
backs or tight ends or quarterbacks, yeah.
And I think this is Sigmund Bloom. I might just be giving him credit for no reason, but I think it's Sigmund Bloom that said it. Don't let the ADP, don't become a slave to the ADP, because your ADP will make your team, and that's a big type of idea to think about, because if you go into a draft having values for players, there shouldn't even be an ADP list. You should be able to just say, this is who I want at this place, this is who I want at this place. But in reality, what happens is we all see this queue, and it makes us draft differently. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much because we really say, okay, well, this is the ADP, so these are the values. It's more so the psychology that everybody's also looking at this same list ADP, so they're kind of considering the players at the top just like you are. So even if it's a player that you like but you think is value too high, you have to really make a consideration. If I want this guy on my team, I got to take him higher than what I probably expect because ADP is high, or a guy that we probably are like, he is a great value, he's going to smash, like how we used to think about AB. He was going in the 8th round. Mm-hmm. We wanted him. We probably valued him higher than the 8th round.
8th round, 9th round,
but
10th round.
We knew let's not jump higher to get him because we can get him later. So these boards are all shuffling around, and you have to kind of, again, be like water, go with the flow. But don't let the ADP tell you where you have to take some guys. There's guys, and I've done a couple drafts lately, but there's guys that I used to like because of where they were going. I'm just not drafting anymore right now. Yeah. They're just the place that they're being selected is just too rich for my blood, and I'm okay missing those guys because there's going to be other players. This is football. People are going to have good weeks and bad weeks. There's always value to be found. You just have to find it. And you just telling me Devonte Smith is slipping. That's a mistake. Devonte Smith is going to have a damn good season, and I usually don't even make these type of claims, but again, the Eagles don't have any main receiver there. if you look at the way he runs his routes, he can always get open. The question is, can they get him the ball? Mm-hmm. If they can get him the ball in that type of division and offense, he's going to eat.
I think the question is whether he's going to be able to stay healthy all season.
I don't think that's an issue at all.
But he's never had injury issues before, and this injury he's dealing with now, he's already back.
Yeah, I'm not.
So it's not even something he's ever dealt. I mean, that he's dealing with long term. So I wouldn't be concerned with that. And the doctor even said it. He was like, it's not a big issue. Now it's football. Anybody can get hurt. But you can't plan for injuries.
Yeah. Right.
C-Mac we couldn't have planned for last year. Barkley we couldn't have planned for. Otherwise I wouldn't have drafted him there. But yeah, if there's a wide receiver dead zone, just take the running back. Just take the running backs. Yeah, take the running backs that you see, or tight ends or quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And you know that you know who to take from those. But if you're gonna take running back, take the guys that you can envision having a meaningful role. Yeah. If just one thing changes, like just one thing, injury, trade, just something.
Yeah. That doesn't mean just take any running back. There are running backs that we don't like, okay?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are in our running back dead zone, but we don't think that every running back that goes in rounds 3 through 6, 7 are just running backs that you should completely avoid. Yeah. Having just sort of kind of a philosophy of I'm just avoiding running backs in these rounds, I think is just a setup for failure because you're going to miss out on so much value. You're going to miss out on guys that hit. Even if there's a low hit rate, be better. Be the drafter that is able to decipher through all of the news, through all of the mess, to find that those handful of running backs that will succeed. Because now you have an advantage over your league mates. So
where are you taking Henderson right now?
I'm not drafting Henderson.
If you were to take him, if you could take him any round.
If I could take him any round, I would probably be looking at taking him 9th, 10th round right now.
So he fell a lot for you.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, like you said, talent versus situation. And this is one of those things, too, where, like, this is why he was, this is where I use the term upside. A lot of times upside to me, to some degree equates with risk. Mm-hmm. He was a risky proposition because I knew he wasn't a first-round running back. Mm-hmm. I knew he wasn't this elite talent, but he was just in a great situation. But because he was in a great situation, I understood that there was risk there, and to me, that was the upside.
Where are you taking James Robinson?
I wouldn't take James Rob. I probably am not going to get James Robinson. I'm not going to take him in the 3rd round. If I start off 0 RB, and for me, 0 RB is going like 2 wide receivers early. I'm not, doing like the 4 or 5 wide receiver build usually. So if I go like 2 wide receivers early, or maybe maybe I'm at the, or somehow for some reason go, tight end, 2 wide receivers or whatever. Then I'd be looking at him in the 4th round. Yeah, but I'm not taking him in the 3rd round. I'm not taking him over Deandre Swift. I'm not taking him over Chris Carson. I'm not taking him over Allen Robinson. I won't even taking him over Robert Woods. Definitely not taking him over Amari Cooper. None of those guys. I'm not taking him over any of those guys.
Okay.
Because again, this is a different offense. This is not the same offense that was there that was different head coach, different offensive coordinator, new weapons. Okay, they have new weapons that have come into play. They have a new quarterback that's come into play. So I'm not saying James Robinson is a bad pick, but he's
a fair amount of unknowns right there.
Yeah, he's just not for me. I think he'll be fine, but he's not. I don't see him as league-winning upside or someone who's going to really have a lot of spike weeks based off of where he's going. There's other guys that I'd rather have.
Well, you're kind of taking him at his ceiling now if he's going in the 3rd. That's kind of his ceiling because I don't know if we expect a lot of PPR work as far as getting a lot of catches out of the backfield. I wouldn't even be surprised if they bring somebody else in. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
And then, Chenault might end up getting a few of those dump-offs.
I had to draft Chenault.
Yeah, he might end up getting I like Chenault, but he might end up getting a little bit of those dump-offs. So, I don't know. Right now, he's taking it. I think the thing with news, with fantasy, it always has this, like, yo-yo effect. It makes people go one extreme way.
Yeah.
I think people are, like, really excited about James Robinson, his potential. I definitely don't see him going in the 2nd round. So the 3rd is his max to me.
Yeah.
He might fall back down to the 4th, the 5th a little bit. Mm-hmm. And speaking of, this is totally off subject, but do you all remember when Pitts was going in like in the 2nd round?
Yeah.
Hasn't happened very frequently recently.
No, he's falling like the 3rd, maybe like the back end 3rd, early 4th.
Because there's been no positive news.
That's what I was gonna say. Nothing's changed.
I don't say positive news, no fluff.
Right, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
He went from I even think he might have. don't quote me. I might totally be lying, but I think he might have creeped into like the very back end of the first in one draft.
Yeah.
If you look on
that's
Fantasy
crazy.
Mojo, there probably is one draft he was taking in the back end of the first.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed about Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I think there've been a couple
And
of
now he's falling.
Yeah, there've been some reports about how he's kind of been, he was getting, I won't say manhandled, but
I didn't see that. I've heard
Yeah.
actually good. Like I've heard they've been
I'm talking about
moving
it.
him.
I'm talking about I'm talking about when they've practiced with other teams, and he's
Have
gone
they been
against the
practicing?
linebacker.
I didn't know
Yeah,
Falcons
they've
were
been practicing with other
practicing
teams. I forget who they. It was either the Bills or the Dolphins.
But even if he's being manhandled,
I don't want to say manhandle, but he was basically, they were doing a good job of covering him.
Being tuned up a little
covering him.
bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. Well, he'll figure it out. But I don't know. That's just weird to me.
So there's a question I've been wanting to ask every single episode, and we keep pushing it back. Let's talk about defenses. When do you guys start evaluating defenses? Because that affects your start sit. It affects, how you set your lineups from week to week.
Yeah.
When do you start to evaluate defenses?
So we're not talking about drafting defense. We're talking about actually
Evaluating defense.
defense where our players are going
Yeah, that's
against.
a good question.
Okay.
Honestly, most of that comes like in the first 2 to 3 weeks, and you can actually get a pretty good idea week one.
Okay.
And that's actually, something that I really, really look at. And a lot of times I'm also like, I'm specifically like kind of looking at, the D line specifically. Definitely, preseason, you got to do your best. You look at player personnel, you look at like continuity, you look at like the defensive scheme and system, etc. They can give you a good sense of what's going on. Like, could the Pittsburgh Steelers be a poor run defense? Potentially, but what's the more likely outcome? That they're going to probably be a good run defense. So I usually, preseason are considering the extremes. Who's a really, really good run defense or projected really, really good run defense? Who's a really, really projected poor defenses? And then I just kind of ignore everything in between. And then those first weeks of the season, I'm really looking at as many games as I can to really try and evaluate, okay, who is a really good defense? And it can be tough sometimes too, because I'm not looking at things like turnovers. I'm not looking at a quarterback, who has a ball that just sails on them or gets tipped in a team defense. They get an interception, and they score. They take it to the house and score 6. That to me is irrelevant. I'm looking at what's going on in the trenches. Mm-hmm. What do the cornerbacks look like? And cornerbacks can be tough because cornerbacks, they can have a good game, they can have a bad game. So sometimes that kind of comes down more to pedigree, but. Scheme and D-line to me are the things that I try to kind of focus in on first, and then the rest just kind of comes throughout the season. But it definitely plays a very, very strong role in start-sit decisions throughout the year.
Yeah. Dayo, like how do you evaluate defenses? Like, what are you looking at, and how long does it take you to kind of set bad defenses versus good defenses?
So I don't put much value in it early. I am a subscriber to play your studs. Mm-hmm. Your studs are your studs. You drafted them high for a reason.
Right.
And we've all seen situations where people are in bad matchups and they do great. Mm-hmm. And we've seen the opposite, people in great matchups totally bomb. You know. So I usually don't let matchups sway me extremely. Now, I do pay attention to like the high end corners, like the shutdown corners. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that will make me tick down a certain wide receiver a little bit. The high-end run-stopping defenses, and you were talking like the top maybe 3-4 teams as far as stopping the run in the league, which you really don't really know until maybe week 3, week 4, after they've had a few games under their belt. But even then, one of the biggest things that I value in fantasy is opportunity and touch potential. Mm-hmm. So even if you're going against a bad defense or you're playing a bad matchup as far as a cornerback, if I think you're going to still get a whole bunch of targets or a whole bunch of carries or catches out the backfield, I'll still strongly consider playing you. Mm-hmm. Again, if it's extreme, like if I know you're going against Darrell Revis, back in the day or right now, I don't know how much Jalen Ramsey is really making things difficult, but somebody like Xavier Howard, exactly, Stephon Gilmore, I might say, let me tick it down a little bit. But even if I tick their value down, if I look at them compared to my alternative options on my bench, I'm still probably going to play them. Right. So at the end of the day, what did it really do? It was an exercise in futility. So I don't value it too much. I more look at defenses to try to for my DFS plays. Because, in DFS, you're trying to play high-end value players that's going to give you the most amount of points so you can win that $1 million, So I look at it like that. But in redraft, your players are your players.
Yeah.
Now, it is a good situation or ideal, and I haven't really spoke on this too much, but I do try to build my redraft teams in a DFS type makeup where I have so many good players where it's really just play the best players I feel like are going to do the best. That's the best type of roster you can have, where it's just like, okay, I have Russell Wilson, and I have Dak Prescott. Who am I going to play? So
which was supposed to be a topic this week, by the way. And then
really?
y'all cut the topic.
I literally just made
I
that
wanted
up
to
in
pick
my mind.
him. Like, who do you draft? Russell Wilson or Dak.
my bad.
But
Yeah,
it's all good. It's
well,
all
yeah.
good.
Another guy whose value in ADPs is dropping for really nothing has changed.
Injury.
Because Adam Schefter came out and gave his opinion, and people kind of ran with it. And then Adam Schefter himself came back out and was like, "Look,
there's a lot
this
of
is not a
smoke.
report. This is just literally, I'm just like talking."
There's
with
just
someone
so
on
much
camera."
smoke coming from Dallas. You
Yeah.
got to understand people be a little bit
There's
concerned.
so much smoke, but people are willing to take Cooper, CeeDee Lamb,
Yeah.
Gallup, Zeke Elliott.
Well, CeeDee Lamb's
even
not hurt.
Tony
You talking
Pollard.
about all his
I think they're
weapons.
willing to take all of his weapons that early.
Well, the people,
all of his weapons are getting drafted.
people kind of look at it as they pick their poison. They're not so much taking all of them.
No,
but the people
people
that
are
are
stacking
taking all of
Cowboys.
them,
Yeah.
they're taking Dak.
Yeah.
They believe in Dak. So,
Dak
Let's go
fell-
back to defenses, though. Let's not move on.
oh yeah,
defenses
okay, I'm
for a
sorry.
second.
So just to finish my comment, I look at these defenses for the extremes, but again, I'm still probably gonna play my guys. I don't believe right now you should be looking at defenses because all the information we have as far as these defenses is historical from last year, and things change, personnel changes, coach changes, schemes change, things of that nature, matchups change, like I said, I don't let defenses sway me that much. Play your studs. You drafted them for a reason, and if they're that great of a player, then regardless of the matchup, they're still going to produce for you. And you're going to be real mad if you bench them and then they go off.
I'll sit my stud. You will sit on my bench if I feel like you need to.
Yeah.
And let's talk about studs.
Yeah.
No, but that's a good segue because I want to talk about studs. I know Dorsey brought it up like in the group chat today. It seems like a lot of backups are going ahead of starters. Let's talk about that. Is that savvy or stupid?
Or give some examples because when he said it, I was like, who? And then when he listed them, I was like, okay, there actually are quite a few.
I mean, like he
backups
listed
going
quite a
over
few,
starters.
and when I
I remember a few. Like he mentioned Sermon over Mostert.
Yep.
He mentioned Elijah Moore over Corey Davis.
Yeah. DJ over Philip Lindsay.
I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that they're stupid. I think in some cases they're savvy. I just think it depends on your build.
Yeah.
So, especially for someone like me who goes running back early, and when I say heavy running back early, what that means these days is I take 2 running backs in like the first 3 rounds. Maybe sometimes I take 3 in the first 4 rounds. I'm not doing like a robust RB build, in the far majority of my drafts. But so if I get 2 running backs that I really, really like, then 6th, 7th round comes around, I'm fine like taking someone like a Trey Sermon or maybe even like, reaching for someone like I shouldn't say reach, but taking someone like a Devonte Williams, not with the idea that I expect them to like, start for me right out the gate.
You're looking down the road.
I'm looking down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
These are like league winners,
Yeah.
later on down the road. So it's savvy from a standpoint of, okay, if you have a certain type of roster construct where you feel like, okay, you have a couple pieces you can get in those mid to later tiers that you can kind of fill out your starting lineup, and you really want to take that kind of high upside. This falls in my definition of high upside picks.
Yeah.
Then those are the type of players
Yeah.
that you go for. Same thing with like the Corey Davis and the Elijah Moores. For me, I would consider that a savvy pick because I'm someone who doesn't believe in Corey Davis's talent. Okay, I don't want to hear
You'd be
about
wrong, but yeah.
Say
Yeah,
what?
he would be wrong, but let him go.
I mean, I don't. Okay, I was wrong up until preseason. We just said we don't care about preseason.
No,
But
No,
we've always been on
No,
Corey
we've always
Davis,
thought
but
that
go
you
ahead.
were
Corey
right.
Davis,
Corey
okay,
Davis.
Corey Davis was nothing for a while, and I mean, that's another. But either way, I'm not a Corey Davis believer, so I don't mind taking. I'm not going to reach for Elijah Moore, but I would take Elijah Moore before I would take Corey Davis. Okay. And I'm fine. If Elijah Moore doesn't pan out and Corey Davis scores more points, that's fine. But I think in terms of upside, in terms of the guy that has like the most ability, the guy that towards the end of the year is going, I see being like the legit guy. To me, that's Elijah Moore. They can do more with Elijah Moore. So certain situations, I think it's savvy. Other situations, I think it's something that I think people may just not be necessarily aware of who the actual starter is.
That's one thing, yeah.
So in that situation, I don't want to call it stupid. I mean, it's just like, just not having, the amount of information. And sometimes we don't have the information.
It's innocent. So. It's innocent ignorance. Yeah. But
that sounds negative.
It's innocent.
It is negative. Like it sounds like y'all are trying to smooth over stupid.
No, they just don't know. They don't know. And I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. But that is a good point as far as that latter point. But initially, there are people that take these players because they're looking at the long game. They're not so much caring about what their team looks like week one. Because if you look at what your team looks like week one, Melvin Gordon's will be valuable. Mostert will be super high. All these guys that we know are the incumbent veteran players there will be valuable because we know week one they're probably going to play the most. But especially in something like a tournament, we all keep in mind that the money weeks are the back end. And we've played football or we watch football enough to see that you have players that, especially young rookies, they come out the gate very slow, but by the end of the season, they're superstars, i.e. last year, Justin Jefferson. Players like that. Even Jonathan Taylor started off slow. All those running backs started off slow. By the end of the season, they were a major thing. So people want to kind of catch that lightning in a bottle with their team this year. The problem is, it gets to a point where they might be overvaluing them too early. Because, back in the day, like last year, I looked at a board from last year. Justin Jefferson was going like in the 12th round, And if you think about that now, that's laughable. The guy's now being taken in the second, third round, and you were able to get him in the 12th round last year, and you saw what he did. Now people are thinking they're finding the next Justin Jefferson, but they're taking him like Jamar Chase. They're taking him in the 4th, 5th round. And I like Jamar Chase. I've even taken him there. I'm not going to lie. But the value's not there anymore. We're, again, taking him at his ceiling. So I get why people do it. It's savvy to them. And, everything can be looked at funny until it works, Right. And then, hindsight is 20/20. And once it works, it's like, wow, you were a wizard. You saw that. You predicted the future, or you can say you messed up. Yeah. But you gotta shoot for the moon and land on the clouds in this to some extent with these type of leagues. You can't play it safe. So I get it. I don't knock it whatsoever. But some people do take it a little bit too far. Like I see some builds where it's like mostly running backs, and I cringe a little bit. I'm sorry, mostly rookies, and I cringe a little bit because. Yeah, you might be building a team that's going to be very high point potential near the end of the season, but if you don't even make it to the tournament as far as have a successful enough regular season, none of that will matter. You'll be one of the highest scoring teams on the outside looking in. So that doesn't benefit you. So
Michael Carter in the Jets backfield, that was especially earlier on in draft season. That was a good example of that. Again, we didn't have a lot of information, but he
put out a long list, and I was like,
the range of where he was going versus Tevin Coleman, who was, I think, sometimes being undrafted potentially, and Ty Johnson, who was definitely being undrafted at the time. That was just, that gap was just way too wide, and we were just way too certain that he was going to be the starter. And yeah, he's the rookie. You could argue that he's necessarily more explosive. I like what I've seen from Ty Johnson. Okay, He's always looked good to me from Maryland. I just have always questioned how much workload he can get. But in an RBBC, he seems like a perfect fit. And to pair him with someone like a Tevin Coleman, and then you have, that could literally be a true 3-back RBBC. But, to kind of assume that he's just the lead guy. And
if it's an RBBC, nobody taking Michael Carter are going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because they're taking him with the assumption that he's going to become the man. Yeah. Even if it's not week one, by the mid-season or end of the season, they're taking him, expecting him to be the guy.
Yeah.
And RBBC value is not where he's being valued at right now. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. You don't want to take those guys in the 6th, 7th round. Those are not
Now,
guys.
if he becomes the guy, I don't know. Have you? Okay, you watched the Jets preseason game. How's he looked?
He looks okay. He looks
Michael
okay.
Carter?
He looks like I thought he was going to look.
Michael Carter, does he look fast?
No.
He doesn't look fast.
Not to me.
I don't think you can say that.
He didn't look fast to me. I think I actually.
I'm
wrote
just
that
saying,
down
does he
as
look
a
fast
note.
to you? Does he look like somebody that has that juice, or he looks like somebody that just...
There's not a lot of difference between him and Ty Johnson. But Ty Johnson is
Ty Johnson is super fast though.
Yeah, there's not a lot of difference. Ty Johnson, he has that explosion. He hits the hole, pretty good. His vision to me is a little bit questionable, and his power is very questionable.
Ty Johnson?
Yeah, Ty
Oh yeah,
Johnson
he's a
is.
small guy. He's a small guy.
But Michael Carter, on the other hand, I'm more based, it's hard for me to take such a small sample of the preseason and say, okay, this is who he is.
But I'm asking you,
and
take that
compare it-
small sample.
I can't.
What is, okay, Chris, you've seen him. What does he look like?
I just didn't think that he looked explosive.
He didn't look impressive to you?
No. But I feel that same way about Javonte as well. I didn't feel like
Javonte looked explosive.
I didn't think he looked explosive at all.
He
I
looked
saw
good.
him catch the sideline once, and it was like, I think they ran him down. Actually, I think he got run down on the sideline.
I don't care about running back is running back, but he looked explosive to me. I don't know.
about running back to break away.
Javonte makes me want to draft him in the 6th round as that guy. I've cooled off on Trey Sermon. I think he's going too high now. And
I haven't seen Trey Sermon play. I haven't seen none of these guys in preseason.
Trey Sermon hasn't looked all that impressive, honestly.
But he's hurt, right?
I think he's back practicing. I think he had an ankle injury. I think he's at least back in limited fashion.
So when it comes to messages and DMs that we get, almost everybody wants to know about these tiers. And I know that this isn't on the show sheet, but I want to go through a few positions, and I want you guys to tell me who's higher in that tier on your
We're
list.
playing one of those games. Okay.
Yeah, let's play one of those for a second.
right.
We already talked about Dak and Russell Wilson. Who's higher, Dak or Russ? Well, first, do you have them in the same tier?
They're in the same tier.
All right, who's higher?
Dak.
I'll go Russ.
You had to go Russ because he went Dak. Although
No.
I agree with you.
But remember,
I take Russ too.
I've also had
You're
my
taking
concerns.
Russ now, but earlier you would have taken Dak.
No,
You're
I
letting
still would have taken. Remember, I've always had my concerns about Dak.
Yeah.
I've always had my concerns about Dak. I still have those concerns.
Yeah.
It's not these current concerns. I feel like the injury is going to be something that's going to be water under the bridge. But the other things, I don't think he's going to run as much. I mean,
He doesn't need to run.
I've talked about it before.
He doesn't
I've talked
need to
about
run.
it before.
That's the thing. He doesn't need to run.
I want my
never
quarterback
did
to
run.
run. I feel like Russ is going to run a fair amount, and that new offense that they're going to implement, I think, is going to benefit him quite a bit. They're going to be very, I don't want to say formidable, but they're going to be a lot more consistent and put up a lot more points, in my opinion. Again, this is all opinion based. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So if I was to choose, I would take Russ.
I don't know. I feel like the Dallas Cowboys defense is worse than the Seahawks defense. And see, this is why I don't like these questions, because now it makes it sound like I didn't like Russ. And literally, that was like
No, it doesn't.
We go back to our very first
you just have
episode.
to-
I love
It
the
doesn't.
Seahawks.
No, you're
Yeah,
just choosing between one
Yeah,
or
if
two.
I got to choose,
Yeah.
I'm going with Dak.
Yeah.
All right, J.K. Dobbins or David Montgomery?
You want to take that?
Gosh, he's hitting us, huh?
Those are pretty good questions.
I
If I'm on the clock right now,
Right now,
Right
I'm
now,
taking Dobbins.
True Serum
right
drafted
now,
right
I'm
now.
taking David Montgomery.
I'm taking Dobbins.
J.K. definitely got the most talent.
See,
I
I'm
don't-
I'm
surprised.
taking David Montgomery.
I think
because
Dobbins has
I
the
think-
most talent.
I'm
I
surprised
think
you said
Montgomery
that,
has
Dahlia.
a better. I think
Yeah,
Montgomery has.
J.K. of course has. That's what I'm saying.
just said Montgomery has
I said
better-
J.K. has. See, you trying to start.
Oh, I
something.
thought you-
I
I
said
thought you
J.K.
said-
has the most talent.
I thought. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
Who's
with that.
behind David Montgomery?
Damien Williams.
Damien
Oh,
Williams
that's
is-
true.
I
And
mean,
then an injured Tariq Cohen.
yeah.
I mean, like I said,
Yeah, Cohen is
you're
always
picking
injured.
guys.
Montgomery has like
Yeah.
that true 3-down upside.
No, he has that situation, like
Right.
a very good situation. You're literally picking guys that I would almost split hairs. Like if I did two
Right.
drafts, if I was in the same situation, one I would
Yeah.
take Montgomery, the other one I would take Dobbins.
The only reason why I wouldn't take Dobbins is because I'm really high on Gus Edwards. I think Gus Edwards is just as good as J.K. Dobbins.
Probably is
That's
so.
ridiculous. All right, but this is the problem with J.K. Dobbins is where he's going.
They pay-
it's so
they
easy
paid
to
the man
pass
for
on
a
J.K.
reason.
Dobbins. It's so
Yeah.
easy to pass.
I
on
mean,
J.K.
yeah,
Dobbins.
Montgomery's going
Montgomery falls into
after-
the fourth.
Yeah, Montgomery's going like maybe about 6 picks after, maybe even a round after. So value.
That's still the same tier, though.
Yeah, no, same tier, yes. But Dobbins, in my mind, he's positioned in that tier, the right place. Because again, I have him over Montgomery. Yeah. But I can understand the argument for Montgomery.
He's one of those weird like RBs like that I would consider like a dead zone RB.
Who, Montgomery?
No. Well,
Dobbins
for sure.
The dead zone starts early for you then, like real early.
Well, there's certain like ones that like I cherry pick because of his just role, his lack of role.
Gotcha.
Like, now I could absolutely be wrong, so I think I've gotten a few shares of him
So
fall into the fourth.
speaking on the Ravens, and I'll just implement a little bit of dynasty stuff in here. Everybody knows Justice Hill, former running back for Oklahoma State. They had high hopes for him. I think he was taken in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe about 3 years ago. He just for some reason has not been able to stay healthy in the past. He came into this season. They had high hopes for him again. He's injured now. One guy, it's actually 2 guys. I forget the second guy's name. I wish I remembered it. But one guy that stood out to me personally is Tyson Williams. So that's a dynasty guy, a running back you can kind of pay attention to. He's looked good as far as camp. He's produced numbers in preseason. The coaches have talked him up. So just somebody to consider. But looking at the Rams, I'm sorry, not the Rams, the Ravens backfield, I don't really see a passing down back there.
No, I'll give you that.
So because I don't see a passing down back, to me, out of all the options, Dobbins is the one that's going to fit that role. And I think that's going to make his value a lot higher because I think we'll value him now as if he's not getting a lot of passing work.
They haven't historically had a passing.
Right. No, I agree. They've had. Oh, you're probably
Mark Ingram
right.
wasn't really.
Yeah, Ingram really wasn't. They haven't done it much either, but I don't know. I just see if they do give him passing work.
One more?
Sure,
We got time for one more.
We got time for one more.
All right. Who do you take? Ayuk or Jonte?
Deontay Johnson?
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Deontay Johnson. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, I love Ayuk, but I'm taking Deontay. That's not to me.
I'm taking Deontay too, man.
I'm taking Deontay. Oh, I love.
And
Deontay.
I love Ayuk.
Even with the easy schedule that Ayuk has towards the end of the season.
To me was not. When I talk about easy schedule, I'm not looking at it from like a wide receiver standpoint. That's just too hard because we say easy schedule. Okay, he's playing the Texans, but then if he sees Bradley Roby, that ain't an easy. That ain't people like to shit on the Texans for the most part, but they don't. There's some players, especially at the corner. That's like our one good corner, and he was a shutdown corner last year. Go back.
They got Desmond King now. He's pretty solid.
Yeah. So, but I was just more from like an overall team standpoint. But I really do like Brandon Ayuk. He's somebody that I've been like actually targeting quite a bit. He's one of those guys that has moved up, but I've been okay paying that price, that 5th round price.
I like Ayuk a lot.
Yeah,
though.
I really do.
And I actually think Ayuk is going over Deontay at the moment. Which means I can't take Ayuk because I'd be taking Deontay instead.
Yeah, they both have a lot of high. They both have like high upside. Maybe Ayuk has the higher upside because potentially less. But I don't know. That's a tough. But definitely give me Deontay.
The thing about it is, we know Deontay can be the main target getter for the Steelers. With the 49ers, we can't guarantee it's going to be Ayuk because it could be Kittle, it could be Debo.
Well, it could be. I don't know if I want to go that far. It could be Claypool. It could be Juju.
It'll be Ayuk.
No. What I'm saying,
outside of Kittle, it's gonna be Ayuk.
What I'm saying is we've seen it be Deontay at the Steelers.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it be Ayuk for the 49ers.
You mean when all three on the field together?
Yeah.
We haven't seen it, but
we haven't seen it yet. So we know Deontay can be that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he will.
This is the other thing too I like about Deontay is that because we know the offense is going to look a little bit different. And yes, I understand it's preseason, but when they did go to like kind of a 2 wide receiver set, kind of 12 personnel type look, Deontay was the one on the field, and that's what I assumed. But it's nice getting that confirmation.
I mean, Big Ben has his eyes on Deontay, man. Like
we were on that. Like if I'm going to take I don't like doing the victory lap things because there's just so many variables that go into play. Sometimes it's just luck. Sometimes it's just you randomly hopped on a guy. But Deontay was just one guy that we were just like infatuated with last year. Him and Will Fuller. Will Fuller to me was more for situation.
Will Fuller did not get suspended, man.
Yeah,
he would have smashed.
Yeah, it was a lot of the situation, but we liked his talent. But it was more situation for me. But we loved where he was going. But Deontay, he was just he was someone that I think checked all the boxes as just being like a true wide receiver one in terms of separating his skill set. And I'm not worried at all about the drops and just his quarterback just really kind of eyeing in on him and targeting him. So we can see, we maybe haven't seen, his upside, his ceiling just yet.
All right, guys, that's all that we have this week.
Wait.
Man,
You
come
do
on,
this
I gotta,
every week,
I gotta,
man.
Oh, you
Like
gotta-
our superstar.
Let me
has
just say
the,
one thing.
Okay.
I really wanted to say two.
You already gave a dynasty.
I really
You
wanted to
already
say-
gave-
it's
yeah,
not even
yeah.
gonna be the dynasty was gonna be the third one, but we'll cut.
But just
that
give
off.
us one. Just give us one.
No, it's gonna be two. First off, I've been meaning to say this, so I'm finally gonna put this out there.
Let's zoom in on him.
This
right quick.
this season, just like last season, FFPC has a thing where the first game of the season, the Thursday night game, that you will be able to adjust your starting lineup after that game. Okay? So basically the Cowboys and the Bucks are going to play that Thursday night game. You do not have to set your lineup prior to that game if you have Bucks or Cowboys players. You can wait until after they've played, after you've actually seen what they've done as far as points fantasy-wise, and you can retroactively put them in your lineup. So, for instance,
Or take them out.
or take them out. For instance, if Brady, like if you have two quarterbacks, Brady and Lamar Jackson for whatever reason, and Brady ends up putting 50 points that game against the Cowboys, you can say, well, let me put Brady as my quarterback and not even play Lamar Jackson week one. And you can do that for all the positions. O.J. Howard, Gronk, Mike Evans, A.B., Godwin, Cowboys players, C.D., Amari, Gallup, their running backs, both their tight ends. I mean, every Cowboy and Buck, even their defenses and kicker, you can take that into account. They did it last year with the Chiefs and the Texans. You were able to see how everybody played out. Watson did have a great game, so people that had Watson probably consider maybe not playing him. So just take that into consideration now that we're getting close to the season.
Yeah, don't overvalue it though.
Yeah.
Take it into consideration.
It just gives you that peek, if you will, that sneak peek. The second thing I wanted to mention for my redraft people, because redraft is right around the corner, and I know people are probably drafting this weekend, so I just want to kind of put that out there, especially if you're playing Yahoo, okay? This is my tip for you. If you're in a league that has a defense and a kicker in Yahoo, I'm not talking about ESPN, do not draft a kicker or defense. Just don't do it. Go through your draft when it comes to those last rounds and everybody's looking at you like, oh, he's about to take his kicker or his defense. Just take another running back or another receiver or tight end and basically leave those two positions open. You do not have to fill them in the draft, and they don't have to be filled until week one. Okay? You can't do that in ESPN. ESPN, they force you to draft all of them.
Unless it's an offline draft, in which case I actually just did that tonight. And when you draft,
They force you to draft a kicker and
no,
defense?
it's an offline draft. So
Okay.
So,
So even then, yeah, offline draft. So yeah, don't draft them. Like
and CBS, I think you can do it as well.
you can figure out your kicker and defense later. Just keep taking stabs at those guys because we don't know what's gonna happen between now and week one. Somebody can be traded. Somebody can get hurt. You can end up having this lottery pick. So that's the second thing. And
Can I
there's
close
other-
up the show now?
Yeah, there's other things, but we'll talk about that redraft stuff later. So.
All right, guys. This is episode 14, I think.
13.
This is 13? Episode 13.
I don't know.
It's after 10.
This is episode 13. Like, rate, subscribe. We're out.
We're in the double digits.
Yes, sir.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your pick in the blanket.